All right, back in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Last week we didn't get as far as I desired. Today we'll get as far as the Lord allows. We'll pick up in verse number 6. We'll read down through verse number 10. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men into destruction and perdition. For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, Lord, as we come before you, we ask you to help us as we preach this afternoon. Lord, help us to rightly divide your word, to bring you honor and glory. Lord, be with us. Make us a people that have ears to hear. Lord, I pray that you go with us throughout the rest of this week and this time. In Jesus' name, amen. Last week, we spent time in verse number 6 talking about what contentment and godliness mean. I really entitled this part 2 of godliness with contentment because it continues to carry on. It stays the same in the theme. We get into verse number 7 this afternoon. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. If that verse is so simple to read and understand what it means, then why is it so hard to live to it? Why is it so hard for us to understand it? Why do we do the exact opposite of it? You know, the affliction, one of the ways affliction is translated from the original Hebrew text means to be brought low, and I've just really spent a lot of time reading this text. I'll tell you what, not being content has caused me a lot of problems over the years. Even today, I'm alive. No, I don't feel well. I'm tired of fighting this gallbladder or whatever it is. But I need to be more content in it. I'm able to stand. I can walk. I can talk. And I'm not in a hospital bed somewhere. I've had the greatest difficulties that have faced me in my professional career ever. and I still have a job. I need to be more content. Sometimes you got to be content in the afflictions and the difficulties. And what do? We work so hard to have everything we can possibly have. You know, do you get tired and frustrated with your kids because they're either not old enough or they're just old enough and they have more toys than they know what to do with and they get strung out all over your home? Or maybe when they're older, their toys become something different. We have our homes full of things that are worthless. They consume us. One of the reasons that I do not like social media is because it just makes you content. Because everybody puts on this fake world that they actually live in, or that they start to believe they live in, that isn't true at all. Because there's no contentment when you're looking at everybody else. You can't even be content in church when you're looking at everybody else. Every family in this church today is in a different phase of life. Every place and every path that it took to get there was different for everybody. And one day you're going to look back and you're going to go, I wasn't content enough where I was at when I was there. You're going to look back and you're going to realize how much you missed, how much you took for granted, how much you tried to rush when you shouldn't, how many mistakes you've made because you didn't live to verse number 7. It doesn't matter what you have. You can't take it with you. There's so many things that we think we need for contentment. First off, if you don't have Jesus Christ, you're never going to be content. You're going to be miserable. You're never going to have happiness. You know, the first place you ought to be content with is the home God gave you. And it starts with the home life that you have. And if you got trouble at home, then you need to look inward. Every person here has their own conscience, their own eyes, and their own ability to be content or cause a problem. I challenge you this afternoon. What are you working for? You know, it's a sad thing. I've seen many people over the years, as I go back to the social media thing, they put themselves out there like their life is so much different than it really is. And they're just fake. Their life is fake. And they try to live in a fake world. This is the real world. It's difficult. Focus should be on serving the Lord and on taking care of your family. Not acquiring things just because you want them. I've met many pastors who want lots and lots of things. You're not going to find any joy or happiness in things. But you will in your children. You will in your service to the Lord. You know, it's really hard to discipline your children. And most of you are in this time of your life. It's really hard to discipline your children, but find contentment in it. Because you've been given some children to discipline. What do you want to pass to your children? You want to pass generational wealth? Generational sin? Generational knowledge or generational faith? Based off what they've been taught. I'll tell you, $1 or $1 million won't do your kid any good. There's nothing wrong with having a rough life. There's nothing wrong with not being able to just barely get by. You know, I miss the beauty sometimes in the work that I do, in the fact that nothing is set in stone. That I have to 100% lean on the Lord for what He's going to do, not what I'm going to do. Because if it was up to me, I'd just mess it up. And I've done plenty of that. Ask yourself that question. Vanity of vanities. The wisest man ever said, you know, if I walk into your house and you walk into mine, we have these beautifully decorated homes. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with making a home a home. But let me speak to something. How often do you have to go and redecorate that said home? How often are we such a wasteful people that we change and do things that we ought not do, that we put our focus on things that we shouldn't do, rather than just get down to realizing that the house catches on fire, it all burns up anyway. 2 houses ago, when we bought in the center of Wauseon, right in the center of town, we bought it from a pastor of a church there, or was a pastor. He was in one of the older homes in Wauseon. And the house caught fire and burnt to the ground. And we bought the new house and loved the house. And we were down in Florida on vacation to my in-laws. And my dad used to work 2 blocks from there, and he was checking on the house and the dog. And he called me and he said, something's burning. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any alerts of anything. And he goes, no, something's burning. Sure enough, didn't know it at the time, but the furnace caught on fire. And then went and actually ruined the air conditioner. It was wired, or the humidifier on the furnace and everything else caught on fire. So I have this nice, beautiful home in the center of town. We loved it. Sure enough, it could have caught on fire. There's a reminder to me, they get built every day. You know, I wasn't content with that home. And the Lord has let me be reminded of that. Often. Contentment is not something that I've always been good at. How about you? So look around or as you look into your life right now, each one of you is in a different phase of life. And perhaps you don't like it. Perhaps you don't like the trials and tribulations that stand before you. Can you find contentment in them? I know you can relate, but where's your focus? He goes on to say in verse number 8, and having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. You know, the scripture doesn't say, and having food and raiment and a house and 2 car payments, and that house has to be 5 bedrooms with 3 bathrooms and 2,500 square feet so that everybody knows that you've made it. It does not say that. And I'm sorry if you have a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, 2,500 square feet. That was not my intention. It just was the first thing that popped into my head. how often we get it all wrong. There's nothing wrong. I want you to hear me clearly. There is nothing wrong with the Lord providing for you because you've been faithful to Him. It doesn't mean you have to live on bread and water with nothing. Men ought to be willing to go out and work and be good stewards. Women, you ought to be good stewards with what comes into the household, not wasteful stewards. Because when you become wasteful stewards, it all goes away. There's nothing wrong with being blessed. There's something wrong with not being content with what you have in the moment. It's like you always want more. You just never can get enough. You know, growing up how I grew up, I just wanted to have a comfortable life for my children. Some money in the bank, not have to put them on any worry if something happens. Worked real hard. Guess what? Look where that got me. And it's okay. I don't need to compare myself to other people. You don't need to compare yourself to other people. If you find yourself doing that, figure out where you're doing that. Are you doing that in church? You're looking at what somebody posts on social media? Might do you some good to throw it away. I think far too often that consumes us more than focusing on our own households. I say that as much being guilty of that. I get so disgusted with myself when I think of those. Paul tells us to be content, just to have food to eat and clothes to wear. That's all you need. Doesn't talk about being content after your house is full corner and your attic is full. There's so many people in this world that have it so horribly. Yet, we don't have enough. You know why? Because verse 9 says, "They that be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction, in perdition." Snare. But they will be rich fall into temptation and a snare. That word temptation is used when Jesus was tempted of the devil 40 days in the wilderness. Temptation isn't a sin. Yielding to it is. Temptation is the trial in which we face and we go through. The temptation of wanting more money and more things is not sin. Falling into that being the love of your life is. I called him, growing up through high school, I called him my best friend. Don't talk to him now, just because life is different and we've grown apart. His parents, believe they were saved people. They were good people. And I remember his dad looking at me and he said, there's property. Their family farm came for sale and they bought the farm. But they didn't get a lot of property with it. And they loved the property and they wanted to farm the property. And I remember going, Tim, why aren't you going to buy that? 17-year-old, your mind, you have everything figured out, right? Tim, why aren't you, that's your family property. Why aren't you going to buy that? They said, I can't afford it. I said, okay. And he goes, listen, whatever you make, you need to learn to live on 50% of it. And if you can't afford it, you just say no. I've never forgot that, and I've never been able to do it because I was too discontent. I could have. And he was serious. And he was one of the most content people I've ever met. He'd always joke about that property and say, if heaven's anything like this property, and it was a nice property, he said, if heaven's anything like this property, I'm going to be just fine. You know, and that was always his joke, just that's what the Lord had given him. Contentment is not meant to be easy. That snare that we talk about, it means to fall into a trap. Discontentment in the love of money, the love of things, the love of power, the love of things is a trap. It's meant to get you in and not let you go any farther. And the thing about a trap is it usually hurts, one way or the other. You know, you can't defend yourself in a trap. It's a sudden destruction. The devil uses this to bring people to destruction. One thing I've always had the visibility of being able to see professionally is people that make a lot of money. People that make a lot of money. When I started selling cars back in 2015, well, I'll tell you, when I started selling tractors back in 2013, everybody back then, it wasn't popular yet. But now you see these small little John Deere subcompact tractors that everybody looks at. Love them. Just little things, just bigger than a garden tractor. You can put a mower on them. You can put a loader on them. You can till your garden. You can put a snowplow. You can do a lot of things. We were the biggest selling compact utility tractor dealer, I believe, in Ohio for the longest time. We were selling 30 to 35 of them a month. Back then, we could set them up and sell them really nice for $15,000. It's like, man, that's expensive, but not that bad. We sold them because John Deere would finance them at 0% for 6 years with everything. Which those tractors didn't lose a lot of money, but still think you should be able to go pay cash for something and buy it and be done when you can. A couple years later, I went to go back and several years later, about 8 years later, I went to look at one for the last property that we had. Same tractor, almost $30,000. And I thought, okay, well, I won't do that. That was my desire. When I started selling vehicles, I could get people to have a brand new truck for $250 a month. No gimmicks, no games. Drive a brand new crew cab Ram for $250 a month with $250 down. Sure, it was a lease. But if I could do that today, I'd sell a lot of cars because none of us can drive anything with no maintenance for that kind of money, right? Now you can't do it for less than $700 a month. I remember the first minivans that came out were just over $30,000 when the Pacifica came out. And we didn't know how we were going to sell it Because I was selling Town and Countries for $25,000 to $28,000 brand new. And the world continued to move on and on and on. And I've seen people go from spending a couple $100 a month to a couple $1,000 a month on their vehicles. And I've seen people that had a lot of money. And they way overspend. Or they trust in that money. That money is going to be a snare to you. It's going to be a trap, and I want to explain how that is. In verse 8, be rich, fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts. That word foolish means unintelligent. It means hurtful things. Money will make you do some unintelligent things. Listen, if you have a lot of money, all of a sudden you're going to start finding some security in that money that's there. If you're not careful. It'll make you go, I don't care, I can spend it. It'll make you, instead of wanting to help somebody because they need help, you want to help somebody so you look good. It'll make you feel like you're bigger than you are. It'll bring a moral reproach upon you because you're often senseless in the way that you spend it. We are living in the generation where, for a lot of people, money is no object. Foolish spending is just part of it. Unfortunately, what happens in our households, for all of us at time to time, is we want to pretend like we have money and we don't. We want to make it look like we have money and ability and we don't. We can't get over ourselves enough, myself included from time to time, to just say, no, I can't do it. I don't need it. But no. As husbands, we ought to have to step up sometimes and say no. And as wives, sometimes you might have to tell us no. We need to be a more resourceful people, not an unintelligent, foolish people. You know, it's okay if your kids go and get clothes from the thrift store. It's also okay if you want to go take them to buy brand new clothes, if that's the means the Lord has given you. But they should understand the value of $1. And so should you. And I think many of us at times we don't. You know, the hardest thing with contentment is when you have a credit card in your hand, you don't see contentment because you don't see the money that you have to pay right away. It adds up faster than if you pull out your wallet and go, I've got $50. Having money can make you be foolish, and sometimes not having it will make you be foolish too. You pretend like you want to have it. We also see the word hurtful lusts here in verse number 9. These are hurtful and desirous cravings. You ever hurt somebody to try to get what you want? Maybe there's a new job you want or a promotion you want. But somebody's standing in your way. It's the lifestyle that you need and that you want to live. You ever had the desire to get what you want, but it's forbidden for you? You see, that's really where it's going. And then you keep going in verse number 9. It says, which drown men in destruction. Money, you know what money's going to do? It's going to make you start to sink at some point. If you're not careful, you're going to start to sink. I promise you, if you're here today and you have problems with money, earning more is not going to fix your problems. If you can't pay your bills with what you have, earning more money doesn't fix that. Stop spending does. Telling yourself no does. Not looking at other people and what they have does. Sometimes when you start to get to the point in your life when you have a little bit of means, people just think that it came easy. Yeah, right. You just may not have been around for the struggle. You know, if I look back, when Alyssa and I got married, we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. We thought we had some money saved. Got some money for our wedding. And then we get home to our apartment and we don't have anything. We bought our first house with a USDA loan because my income qualified under the threshold. I didn't know you had to have money down on a house. Lord worked it out. I didn't put a dime down. I paid for my appraisal. Didn't know. Had to furnish that. You know, I wasn't content in that little apartment, neither was my wife. That home we bought there, the Lord blessed us immensely. Value on that home doubled in the last 14 years. That might be more than that now, to be honest. To this day, I believe that home was 400 square feet less than the house we have now. If I would have stayed there, before I came here, that house would have been almost paid for. But I didn't. I had to go get that new home at 2,200 square feet and would have had 5 bedrooms once we finished the rest of 2 bedrooms out, downstairs and upstairs, and 4 bathrooms, right? Beautiful home. We loved it. Loved that home. Wasn't content though. Took me down in that trap. Got to have more. I don't have a whole lot to offer you. But I can tell you, you need to be content with what you have. We want things fixed and we want them now. We have a desire for things and we want them now. Don't speak to anybody in this world about having delayed gratification. Means that you have to wait to get what you want. Getting what we want is what we're worried about. This destruction is a bottomless destruction. And then you keep going in verse number 9, in the last word it says in perdition, which is perishing. Money will bring you to a bottomless destruction, bring you to perishing. The worst part about money is you get in so deep, you no longer know what to do. I got to earn more, and I got to earn more, and I got to earn more. As soon as you earn more, you figure out how to spend it before you ever see it. Leo wants to, my dirt bike that I had picked up and Leo's dirt bike are the same brand, and he's been wanting to change out his plastics on his dirt bike for a while. He wanted to put his own graphics and stickers on it, and Remy got his, and Leo wanted his, and I don't have any problem with that. But I told him, I said, you're going to save some money for it. He's like, well, how much? I told him how much it was, and I said, you need to save double that. Because I don't want you just to spend every dime you have on that. He already broke his arm on the thing, and he's going to tip it over. He's going to scratch it up as soon as he puts it on. It's fine if you want to. He's a 9-year-old boy. If he wants to participate in something like that, nothing wrong with that. But giving up everything he has for that, that's what we do. That's what I do. We give up all of our means for things that we want, yet we leave no time for the Lord, and we're not content in those little struggles. You ever look back on your life at times and you go somewhere that reminds you of something from before, and you go, boy, I should have appreciated that more? You know? I should have appreciated this or that. Money will make you feel powerful and able. It swells your pride, and eventually it's going to make you look foolish. You almost forget what it was like when you didn't have any. My wife and I didn't have anything when we got married. I was working at Kenfield Group, making $12 an hour. Worked as hard as I could every week. I was in a similar situation than I am now, to where I could never please anybody, but not nearly as bad as what it seemed like. We had, I don't know how many lawns that we mowed. The landscape work, my wife worked right alongside with me. I'd get off work, we'd go hook up the trailer and the equipment, and we'd go out. We'd go do a landscape job together. I'd get off work. We'd go out. Those times when we look down, and you know, when you're that young, you just can't go out and get just a credit card. I had one. It had a $500 limit on it. And at some point, there's just not a whole lot to go around. And you miss the joy of having to share a meal together, having to go do something free together. Those moments when you can't buy this because you don't have the means to. When we celebrated 10 years together, we went to a fancy restaurant that I had been taken to from work, and we enjoyed it. And it was a very expensive meal. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It wasn't swollen with pride. It wasn't pride-filled. It was just us celebrating 10 years of being together. And we've never done that again. The Lord gave us the means at that point to do that. And some of the times that we've had since then have been maybe not necessarily splitting the meal, but doing a whole lot of things for free. There's nothing wrong with that. We miss the joy in life for the shiny things, for the good-looking things. It's really hard to put that to practice. The Lord always has His way of bringing us back to the place where we belong. Very quickly, and as we finish, we really need to finish verse 10. That way we can kind of close with that portion and move into the next portion. Verse 10 says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." I can't tell you how many times I've seen this happen. I think it would have happened to me. I think that was my other path. Had I not been your pastor. Love of money, to love it, the root, the very beginning. The beginning of evil is loving money more than loving the Lord. Loving your church, loving your struggle, loving your affliction. People that take root and love money more than everything else, they end up going away and erring away from the faith. They want the image that they have money. They want the look that they have money. What do we judge people that they have money by? The house they live in. The clothes they wear. The vehicle they drive. Maybe the job that they do. Do they have a vacation home? What are their hobbies? You know what we don't judge them by? Do they have the Lord? I have seen so often people that have it all and they're miserable. So why are you chasing something that's going to make you miserable? Money will cause you to walk away. Why? Because you're going to worship it. I've seen so many people consumed with the love of money and wanted to be treated as though they had money, the appearance, the feeling, the power that they think money will give them. It says, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. You know what that word pierce means? Have you ever seen kind of like if you've ever been to a Brazilian steakhouse or seen some type of cooking where they put meat and they cook it as it spins, they call that a spit that they put meat on. And it's vertical and it spins and the meat is just stacked on it and it cooks that way. That's what this word pierced means, to be put on a spit. You loving money, you not being content with the means you have, where you're at in your life, it's going to put you on a spit. If you're not content with your children, if you're not content with your home, with your life, with everything that you've been given, if you're not content with today, you won't be content with tomorrow. If you're not content with the job and the vehicle you have now, you're not going to be content with the next one. If you're not content with the home you've been given, you certainly aren't going to be content with the next one. And at some point, the Lord's going to take those things away and make your life more difficult. It's not about you. It's not about what you look like. It's not about what you have. It's not about what you want. You've been entrusted a family, a job. Whatever you've been entrusted in your life today is your priority, and you ought to be content with it. Because if you're not content with it, I am a living witness that the Lord can take it all away from you. Stop looking at other people. Stop desiring more. Stop not taking care of and not being a good steward with what you have. Stop wishing that you would get so far down in life to where you don't have to struggle. Because as I was teaching our teen class this morning about life's lessons, they're life's lessons. They happen from here on out. When you stop learning that lesson, you probably don't have life anymore. You're never going to not struggle. You're never going to get away from difficulty. You might just mask the problem for a little while. But it's coming. If you're not careful, and just thankful for the Lord's provisions, He may bring you to a point where He's the only one that you can look at again and say, Lord, help me. He'll take you out of church, take your family away, take your job away. You know, it's a shameful thing to have to forfeit your home. Most people don't do that. They just file for bankruptcy. That's a shameful thing. If you've committed a debt, you ought to pay it at all expense. I'm not saying you need to pay every interest. If you committed to a debt and you can pay it off early, you pay it off early. If you give somebody your word, you take your word known. You follow after your word. You don't get some get out of jail free card. That's not what Christians should do. If you have committed and overcommitted yourself and done more, then you have to start leaning on the Lord, that the Lord's going to take care of you. And beg for mercy. And be content while you're going through it. As we finish this with two more, it says erred from the faith and pierced themselves through. That is to mean tortured one's soul. They chased after money and discontentment so much, that they ended up so poorly piercing themselves through, torturing themselves. The love of money can be a constant torture in your life. Most marriages end because of money problems. Husbands and wives, if you've committed to a debt, if you've overdone it, this isn't going to fix your problems. You're just going to do it again the next time around. You can be tortured together until you take care of those things. The last word there is sorrows. That is to mean consuming grief, pain, and sorrow. If you're not content, pierce yourself with a consuming grief that becomes your sole focus. None of these things I say, do I say looking down on anybody. Because all of these things have been true in my life. If I could preach them so boldly as to say, don't do it. If I could humble myself to tell you, don't do it. It's a pain unlike any other. I don't look down upon you. I preach so that you won't do it. Tell you what, a savings account, a big house, couple cars, and everything else you need. That's not what's going to make your kids happy today, folks. A big vacation, nice clothes, fancy dinners, big house, all those things. That's not what's going to make your kids happy. Let me tell you what's going to make your kids happy. You. You being available. You teaching them. Your kids aren't going to be happy if you just let them go and do whatever it is that they want to do and however it is that they want to do it. There's no happiness for them in that. And there's only sorrow for you in that. If you're in the point of raising children, be content with that. Be content with the changing of diapers, the dealing with sickness. Be content with the little things, with getting over yourself long enough to say, stop fighting. Start respecting each other. Get over yourself long enough to say, I've got to stop and go pay them attention. They're acting out because I'm not doing what I should be. Contentment can be found in many ways, but it won't be found in money. My advice, as you all go home, I want you to really get down to the focus of what's the focus of your home. If it's money, you're going to be miserable. But if it's pleasing the Lord, and that truly is the focus of your home, that's not pleasing you or me. If it's pleasing the Lord, that will bless you. I say nothing to condemn anybody. I say it to sternly warn you. You must be careful. Otherwise, you'll pierce yourself with many sorrows. And those don't go away easy. We might preach on that the next time.